Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Insurance Journal's Academy of Insurance's weekly webinar after show. I'm your host, George, and joining me for the after show today is not only the director of the Academy of Insurance, but also the instructor for today's class. Today's class was 5 reasons your work isn't covered. And the instructor for today was Mr. Patrick Raitt, and is Mr. Patrick Raitt, and is a great welcome to you, Patrick, that I'm extolling to you and extending to you. And Patrick, welcome to the after show. It's great to have you here.
You know, I always love the after shows. I particularly like when it's just you and I for just a quick conversation. So, and I do like the way you say director.
I don't want anybody to make any mistake about whom I am talking to. So no, you're a big wheel down at the Cracker Factory. Yes, exactly. So a great class, interesting class, because it's a CGL class, and you have the last couple of years, not this year per se, but since I've been with the Academy, you've taught the 7-part CGL Masterclass series.
Yep.
Today's class was centered around one form primarily, or very few forms, and also at the end of every webinar, I always say, you know, we want you to tell us what you want for courses, classes, topics, anything. We want to be the best academy we can be for you. We're nothing if not organic. And at the beginning of today's class, you mentioned that today's topic came out of a request. We take requests. Can you tell us a little more about how this class came to be? Because it's not your typical CGL class, if you could.
Yeah, so somebody had just reached out to me and asked if we had anything, any classes related that speak about the your work exclusion. And so I looked at the exclusions and the language related around your work on the CGL policy, and said, well, I think we could do something with this, and it'd take about an hour. And so that's why I put it together, and I thought it'd be a great class, and I had a great time doing it.
Fantastic. So it's one form. So does it fall under a particular coverage like A, B, or C, or is it exclusions, or where does it fall into the?
What we've got here essentially is we're dealing with under coverage A, which is bodily injury and property damage under the CGL.
Okay.
And, dealing with the terms your work and your product in particular, and where we pick up some exclusionary language, and what we dealt with was largely exclusions under coverage A, and how this language also allowed us to set up the products completed operations hazard, which is covered under coverage A, but has its own separate aggregate limit outside of the other liability sources.
Got it. You talked about products and different exclusions. Like one thing you mentioned was interesting to me was products that were recalled, like magic chefs that caught on fire, not the people, but the product, like sleepers, children's sleepers. So I was wondering if there was no recall on those products, and one of them you're using them in the course of your work maybe, and one of them caught on fire, but there was no recall. Would they be covered under the CGL, or is it excluded because of the recall or other reasons? Or can you go into a little more of that?
Yeah, that's interesting, because let's do, for example, a product that is recalled, like a Magic Chef kitchen device, where if it caught fire and damaged somebody's home, that occurrence, that moment would be a covered, potentially a covered incident of bodily injury or property damage, or both. What's excluded under the product's recall is the cost related to recalling all the rest of them, and either replacing them with something else, or compensating stores and individuals for their costs related to the item. The product's recall doesn't exclude the property damage to a product that's out there in the wild. It just excludes those costs related to the recall itself.
So are you saying that if a claim is filed and there's a cost of related to the recall of the product, then that cost is subtracted from the payout to the insured, or does it just negate the claim altogether?
Depending on how it's done. I mean, you just could just deny the claim altogether. It could be just deny a partial denial. The purpose is not to ensure some companies or some manufacturers negligence in creating a product. If they create a dangerous product, that's the cost with that, all that recall and all that, that's not meant to be something that should be insurable.
Gotcha. So in that case, because the CGL policy I know provides coverage for third-party claims, who would be the third party making the claim in that case? The person whose house caught on fire because of the use of the Magic Chef, or?
So if there's bodily injury or property damage related to the item catching fire, the person who's their house or maybe their business, whatever, that homeowner or would be the claimant for property damage or bodily injury related to that fire.
So there's in the CGL masterclass, I know we don't have anything on the calendar to have that be taught this year, unless by popular demand people ask for it. Just saying, there was so much interest in this class today. Should it be class number 8 on the? Should it be its own? I mean, obviously it is its own class because we taught a whole class on it today. But should it get its own sort of more scrutiny than just what's on because I know one of the CGL masterclass parts is devoted entirely to coverage A. Mm-hmm. So do you see it having a place and having the CGL masterclass be an 8-part series instead of a 7-part series?
It's possible. I mean, just to kind of let you know and let the folks that are paying attention know, one of the classes that I'm working on developing this year is an hour strictly devoted to the pollution exclusion. So, things like that could be added to the CGL masterclass potentially.
The pollution exclusion on the CGL policy?
Yeah.
Oh, well, look at you thinking about adding the class. Pollution is an important topic as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That it's something where in this particular venue, we could really dive into that for a solid hour webinar. It's a complex and complicated bit of exclusionary language.
Actually, I'm kind of getting off track here, but in terms of pollution, does pollution? So say there's an explosion or something, and there's fumes that are coming in the air from a damaged property. Is that considered a type of pollution in the arc of insurance coverage, or is pollution all natural when it comes to the CGL? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so that would definitely could be a form of pollution on the CGL, sure.
Okay. Do you think there are, I don't know about exclusions, Patrick, right? Are you a fan of them? Are you not a fan of them? Do they complicate insurance? Do they make writing policies easier because they more clearly or less clearly define what should be covered and what shouldn't be covered? Or do you think exclusions serve a legit purpose, or are they just policy language that is superfluous?
So yes, it complicates insurance because the exclusionary language often, like in part of what we discussed today, was a lot of exclusions will state completely this is excluded, and then later on in the exclusion says, well, that's excluded except for under these circumstances, which is complicating things. It makes things more difficult. Do I like exclusions? I have an underwriting background. I love exclusions. I'm a fan of any time I can exclude if I need to. If I can exclude a loss, I want to. And it's not necessarily just exclude to exclude.
Sure.
But if the exclusions make sense based on the risk profile of the insured that we're talking about, if it makes sense to exclude an exposure, then let's exclude that. On the other hand, if it makes sense to cover the exposure, let's cover that.
Right.
I wouldn't want to write a commercial property policy and say, yeah, I know that you wanted to cover your building and it's a brand new building and it was built to code and it's perfect, but I don't know. No, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I have one more question, and that was, this was a fascinating part of the class. And I was wondering if you could give us a little tiny bit of like the meaning of this. Talking about property that isn't damaged but can't be used. And I was thinking, is it a warranty that runs out, and you can't get a, can you? So for a lay person like me, if you could tell us a little more about what that covered in the class, that'd be great, because it'd be really interesting.
It's property that's impaired because of either an improper product being put in by the insured, or incomplete or insufficient work done by the insured. The example I like to use is if you take your laptop into get repaired or in for an upgrade, and they put in an incorrect memory card, and because of that, it doesn't boot up properly. The laptop itself is not damaged, but it doesn't work. If you were to take out the bad memory card, the wrong memory card, or the improperly installed memory card, and put in the right memory card that works and do it correctly, the laptop would boot right up.
Right.
That's impaired property that doesn't work, but it's not really broken.
Got it. Interesting. Well, Patrick, are you excited? Just a quick question about baseball season. Spring training is happening. What's your feeling on that?
First thing is I'm very jealous of our corporate CEO, our organization's, it's not CEO, CFO, who was able to go to Arizona to see some spring training games. Very jealous of somebody else connected to the company who works for a company who's doing work for the athletics. So it hangs around baseball people. So I'm a little jealous about that. I'm mildly upset that I have not gotten down to Tampa to see any spring training yet. The other piece of that is I'm so excited for baseball season. I'm ready for some baseball. I'm ready for bigger bases. I'm ready for no shifts. I'm ready for a pitch clock, all the new rules. I'm excited. It's time.
All right. Well, what a wonderful up note to end our after show on. So
you asked.
I did. That's on me. Well, Patrick, thanks very much again for today's class. And today's class proves that we do listen. So absolutely, at the end of every webinar, I say it. At the end of today's after show, I will say it. If you have any requests, any topics that you don't hear about us covering, any classes, courses you want on specific things that may or may not be coming down the pike, we could have an instructor for it for June, but not have it on the calendar yet. So definitely check in with us. We want to know how we can be of best service to you. So Patrick, on behalf of our instructor today and our director, Patrick Great, this is your host, George, saying thanks everyone for coming today. Congratulations to the world on baseball season happening, and take care of yourselves and have a great day, everybody.